And when Jesus and the three came to the other disciples, they saw a great crowd around them, and the scribes were arguing with them. And immediately all the crowd, when they saw him, were greatly amazed and ran up to him and greeted him. And he asked them, "What are you arguing about with them?" And someone from the crowd answered him, "Teacher, I brought my son to you, for he has a spirit that makes him mute. And whenever it seizes him, it throws him down, and he foams at the mouth and grinds his teeth, and he becomes rigid. So I asked your disciples to cast it out, and they were not able." And Jesus, he answered them, "O faithless generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him to me." And they brought the boy to him, and when the spirit saw him, immediately it convulsed the boy, and he fell on the ground, and he rolled about, foaming at the mouth. And Jesus, he asked his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" And he said, "From childhood. And it has often cast him into fire and into water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us." And Jesus, he said to him, "If I can, all things are possible for one who believes." Immediately the father of the child cried out and said, "I believe, help my unbelief." And when Jesus saw that a crowd came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, "You mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." And after crying out and convulsing him terribly, it came out, and the boy was like a corpse, so that most of them said, "He is dead." But Jesus, you got to love that "but" in there. But Jesus, he took him by the hand, and he lifted him up, and he arose. And when he had entered the house, his disciples asked him privately, because doing it publicly would have been embarrassing, "Why could we not cast it out?" And he said to them, "This kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer." Tonight I want to talk about doubt. I don't know about you, but I've got doubts. Anybody here got doubts? Anybody? You know what? One of my big doubts is every time I ask my daughter to clean her room, I really doubt that she's going to actually listen to what I have to say. I've got other doubts too. I've got doubts that I'm ever going to look like I did when I was 21. I bet you've got some too, huh? I know a lot of you study for a test all week, ready. But then I ask you, "Hey, you ready for that test?" You're like, "Ooh, I don't know about that one." I got doubt. I got some doubts. We got that one, everybody's got that one friend. They kind of, they embellish the truth a little bit. Do you know what I'm saying? They tell the truth, but it's got a little extra flavor to it, a little extra drama attached every time. Where it's like, you're not lying, but you're not telling the truth. And they'll be like, "You're not going to believe what Stephanie said the other day." And you're like, well, your face just kind of gets ready like, I don't know. I know Jennifer, and I don't think Jennifer would have said that. I doubt it. I doubt it. But we got these little doubts. I think a lot of us, we're even conditioned to think that maybe a little bit of doubt is even healthy. If you believe everything you hear, then you're childish and you're naive, right? I think every room that we step in is often an opportunity for doubt. Where you go in and you're like, "I think everybody's going to like me." And then you step in and you're like, "Ooh, I'm not going to be myself. Because if I do, either I'm going to be too much or they're not going to like me." So you doubt that if you're really yourself, you're going to have that space to make friends. Anybody? Just me. Just me right now. We got doubts. I think that doubt is one of those things that's just a constant in life. Because doubt isn't its own thing. It's just belief in a different direction. It's belief in something, but not the thing that you initially started to believe in. Does that make sense? I was at the coffee shop the other day, and I was talking to a friend. And I asked him, I was like, "Hey, why do you doubt?" Not why you doubt big things, but like what is the reason, the base, like underlying, like ground floor layer, like what makes you doubt? Not God, not people, not yourself. What is the thing that makes you doubt, period? And they said to me, I think that doubt is really just this insecurity that's at the back of my head saying that the thing that you want to trust in for some reason is not going to make it. It's going to fail. I want to trust this person in this relationship that I'm in. But I've been in a relationship before and it's ended a way that I didn't expect it to end. So now every other relationship has been marked by this underlying feeling that it's going to happen again, that I've been hurt before. That I want to take a step of faith. I want to be risky and take that chance. But I've done that before. I know this song, I know this dance, and I've done it too many times to believe that something is really going to go the way I thought it would. We've got these doubts. And it's just a working definition of what doubt is. It's really just what's on the other side of an expectation that you have not lining up with an experience that you've lived. That you thought something was going to go a certain way, and when it doesn't go that way, that experience is now rewritten. That expectation is now foolish to have, and I will never expect it again. If we're bold enough to say it, that a lot of our life has been marked by a belief in something at one point or another being ripped out of our hands because of life. And now what sits in the rest of that space is doubt. That doubt is really just faith that's deteriorated to what is kind of hopeful, but not really. No, this story, it makes me ask the question, how do we get to that place where doubt is just the constant that we live in? How are we conditioned by it? Because it's easy to doubt other people. People feel they're not perfect, but it's even also easy to doubt yourself because you know that you're not perfect and you can expect that there's going to be some flaws and some setbacks. You can kind of put that to bed, right? Like, yeah, I get people are going to let me down because I let myself down. I don't expect people to be perfect, right? We kind of have that. But what about God, who's perfect and who's good and who never does anything wrong? And we sing songs about him never letting us down, but if we're being really honest, sometimes it's hard to believe. And it's easy to doubt. How do we get there? Because I don't think it just starts out that way. I think we come into this faith walk with Jesus and you're like, I want to believe. But there's something about it that makes us feel like, maybe this isn't as sure a footing as I thought it was. For some of you, it's like just the very initial step. Like, I'm believing in something that I can't see, I can't touch, I can't hear, I can't taste. Like, none of my senses, scientific method cannot make this real for me. That's why I doubt. There's a lot of things you live your life by, that same thing, but you don't doubt those things, by the way. Consistency is key for you, person that's really smart, that thinks you're smart. I was that person. Some of you got it. But doubt, it's a thing in us. How do we get there with God? And I picked this story today because I believe it shows us a picture of how doubt can creep into those spaces in our heart where we once believed. And I want to tell this story of this father who shows up like believing for a miracle, and in the middle of it kind of drops that belief, and he is fully established and rooted in his doubt. You with me? There's a formula in his life that we're going to see marked by three things. The first is difficulty. That he has experienced difficulty in his life. His son has an issue. And not only that, but it's been an issue for a long time, since childhood. It's lasted a while. It has a duration to the difficulty. And the last is disappointment. I love the Bible, and this is one of the reasons why, especially narrative, because they tell you a story without giving you all the pieces. They tell you a story as it's happening, like you're watching a movie and some character just kind of intersects into the movie and you have no idea about their backstory. There's no character development. They're just there, fully developed character, boom. and they leave you trying to look at the story with all these pieces in between the lines that are not on the page. Do you understand what I'm saying? This dad, he's had a lot of life that is not even close to being completely collected in this, 15 verses? This man's whole life is boiled down to 15 verses. And I know a lot of people, they're like, well, if it's not in the Bible, if it's not on the page, well, the beautiful part of reading these stories is actually what's in between the lines. It's the pieces where emotion hits, and this story becomes something that's close to your heart and not just theory or story about Jesus, but it's something that's real. You know, I want to for a little bit, if I can, I want to tell this story from the Father's perspective, and I want to walk us through a little bit longer than what the words on the page will allow. Is that okay? Okay. So I'm a dad, and I'm married, and I'm waiting. Yeah, thank you, Jesus. God's so faithful. Ain't he good? Look, my wife's so fine too. Ooh, thank you. Just keep walking with Jesus. He's going to take care of you. But this dad, he one day, him and his wife had a conversation and probably went, hey, baby, I see you looking real fine. And I'm trying to have a child with you. And I'm trying to practice making that happen. You know what I'm saying? Y'all are in college. Don't act like this isn't a thing, you know. And so they're like, yeah, and they're trying. I mean, who knows? Maybe it could have taken a couple years. Maybe there's some difficulty in getting pregnant. I know that's a very real thing for people, and it's a very like heartbreaking and hard task. But imagine that he gets the news one day. His wife pulls out the pregnancy test, and she's like, "Baby!" Gets it on TikTok. You know what I'm saying? Like, "Hey, pregnant!" And he's ecstatic. He's pumped. He's like, "Yes, yes, yes! I'm gonna be a dad. I'm gonna be a dad." And this hope in his heart rises up for all he's going to be as a father. How he's going to play with that little child. He doesn't know yet because they didn't have the ability to tell. But let's say it's 21st century, right? Let's say they have their gender reveal and he's got all his homies there and she's got all her girlfriends there. And he's praying, God, please let it be a boy. Please, please, please. I want him to go to the first round. You know what I'm saying? We got big dreams. Okay. He pops the balloon or he hits the baseball or he dunks it, whatever it is for the, you know what I'm saying? And the blue dust goes everywhere. He's smoking a cigar with his boy. He's like, hey, we got a boy. Let's go. I'm a girl dad, by the way. But anyway, he's excited. He's excited. And he prays every night for 9 months for this little child. Puts his head on the stomach of his wife and he listens. Feels it kick, and this joy in his heart starts to leap. He's so excited, and he comes the day of having this baby, and the baby comes, and he is just there. He just catches the baby. He's like, oh my God, this is a human life, and this is my kid, and I love you more than anything. My whole life has been up to this moment, and I would do anything for you. How a father loves a child. And that kid grows a little bit, and that hope, that joy, that happiness that was once in his heart turns sour. He starts to wonder, I wonder why my son can't say dada yet. I wonder why he can't hear me talk. Not only that, he gets a little older and he can't talk, he can't hear, but he seizes up and he falls and he grinds his teeth and foams at the mouth, has epileptic seizures into the water and into the fire to destroy him. Often, many times. And this father, I can just feel his heart breaking. God, I was so excited about this child. I believed you for him. I was so excited. And now this is what he's going through. You can just see, daddies fix things. And this is something that this daddy can't fix. And he's heartbroken because there's nothing he can do. And you see him at night, just looking up at heaven like, God, do you see us? Do you care about us? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. See, there's difficulty, and it lasts a long time. But then one day, he hears this story about this man named Jesus who heals people like his son. And he gets that hope back that he once had. And he grabs his son. He's like, hey, we're going to go see Jesus. This guy's going to heal us. And not only that, I heard that his disciples can even heal. And he shows up, and there's a huge crowd, as always, because it's Jesus. And he fights his way through. He gets in line. He waits his turn. He's holding his son. And he gets to the disciples, and guess what? Jesus isn't there. And you could feel it maybe in his heart a little bit, like, dang, the one day I chose, Jesus isn't here. Of course this would be what happened to me. He started to just doubt that even good things can happen in his life anymore because this is the state of his son's world. And he waits his turn, and he gets there, and the disciples, they get his son. He's like, here he is, still excited. And it says that they were unable to cast it out. That this little boy had been demonically oppressed for years. And the disciples who promised that they could do this, that everyone said that they can do it, they couldn't do it. And he is overwhelmed by this sense of disappointment. And the little bit of hope that he had left, the little bit of belief that he had left is now gone. And what remains isn't just doubt, it's despair. Where he wonders, man, can you do anything? Can God do anything? Is there anything that can be done for my son? He's hopeless. I think for a lot of us, we experience some really hard things in life, and we're in that same place that Father's been, where we really hoped that that person would be healed. We prayed every night, God, would you please just do something to heal my friend, my mom, my relative? God, that you would do something to change the situation. I went through some really hard stuff, and I feel like you're nowhere around. That's exactly what this father feels. He feels disappointed and desperate. And it's so funny that in the time that you feel the most disappointed, where you feel the most desperate, that's exactly when Jesus shows up. It says when Jesus walked down the mountain, he's confronted with the disciples arguing, and this man says, hey, I brought my son to you, and they couldn't heal him. Teacher, I brought my son to you, for he has a spirit that makes him mute, and whenever it seizes him, it throws him down, and he foams and he grinds his teeth and becomes rigid. You know, sometimes we can be so caught up with it that we can't even recognize the Savior. It says it 3 times. It says, whenever it seizes him, it throws him down, and he foams and grinds his teeth and becomes rigid. He's so overwhelmed by this circumstance, so overwhelmed by his problem, so familiar with this issue that he can't even see Jesus for who he is. The funniest thing about the story is that Jesus, right before this, in the story right before this, he is on the mountain with the 3 disciples, and he reveals his glory to them. He is transfigured, and Moses and Elijah are there, and Peter, James, and John are awestruck. This is the guy. He's not some teacher, bro. He's God. Like, he's God. They see him for who he is in his fullness. He's transfigured. His clothes are whiter than anything. No bleach can get clothes that white. I'm sorry, bro. Sorry, Mr. Clean. You're not doing that. And he walks down with the glory still on him. And the guy can't even see it. It's in the text. He says, teacher. That ought to tell you right there, he has no idea who he's talking to. Do you know what's so funny about the Gospel of Mark? If you've read the whole thing up to this point, the demons recognize who Jesus is. Jesus, Son of the Most High God. Jesus, the Holy One of God. The demons get it. The disciples? No. They're on the boat. It's a storm. And they're like, hey, you going to wake him up? You want me to wake? I'm not going to wake Jesus up. You want me to wake him up? Hey, we're about to die. Just go wake him up, Peter. Peter goes, Lord, Jesus, teacher, teacher. It's actually teacher. Teacher, teacher. Jesus wakes up like, oh, it's a little storm. Teacher, do you not care that we're perishing? We're dying here, teacher. And what does Jesus do? Just stretches out, steps over to the bow of the ship, and says, shh. And the storm stops. And the disciples are like, hold up, bro. Who is this cat? This dude's built different, bro. He just told the wind and the waves to die. They told the storm to stop. And it listened. Well, how much of a thug Jesus got to be to yell at a storm and say, stop, and it just done? Didn't wait a little bit, just over. Like a light switch turned off. And they are in awe of him. It says that they were greatly afraid. Of course, because he's God. The man who, the God who created the universe, who made that sea, is in the boat with them and shushes a storm. And they can't even recognize who he is. Who is this man? God. They still don't get it. He says the same thing that they do. Teacher, if only he knew. If only he knew. I think sometimes we can be so preoccupied with our problems that we miss who God is. That we miss that he is present in the midst of pain, that he is present in the midst of difficulty, that he has not gone anywhere. Our problem is we're so blinded by the issue at hand, by it, that we can't even find him. You know, I think our problem is the reason we don't see God and we wonder where he is all the time. We're in the midst of a hard circumstance. God, where are you? It's not that God's not there. God's present. It's just that you don't know where to look. You know, I have this tendency, okay? Confession hour, okay? Me and my daughter, actually, she's 9. I'm 31. And we have this same problem. It's very sad. I'm trying to learn. But me and her, we have a tendency to lose things. And what I mean by lose things, I don't mean actually lose things. I mean place something somewhere and I come back and it is no longer there. And what I realize is it's not a me and her problem, it's a my wife problem. Because what happens is she will come and she will move the thing that I strategically placed where I placed it. And I will go back to it and I'm looking where it was. I'm like, it was there yesterday? I'm on the phone with her. She's at the grocery store. Hey, baby? Yes. So you remember the thing that I put on the table yesterday? I can't find it. Did you move it? And it didn't like, yeah, I put it somewhere. He's like, I don't know. Did you look for it? And my wannabe sarcastic like answer to my wife, but you can't be all like that as a husband. Hey, men, remember this, okay? Learn from my mistake. You can't just pop off at your wife and be like, it was where I put it last time. Did you move it? That's going to get you in a fight real quick, just letting you know. I was like, well, I looked where I put it. Did you move it? She goes, I don't know. I'm not there, baby. You're going to have to look for it. And so for me, I don't have time to look. I don't have time to. I got stuff to do. So I'll look real quick. I'm looking. I'm like, I look there, look there. I'm on the phone. Is it on the table? No. Is it on the cabinet? No. Is it in the kitchen? Is it in the junk drawer? And she's walking me through each place. And I'll be like, you know what? I'm just going to wait till you get home and you can help me find it. Hang up the phone. She mad. All right. This is the first part. I should have just been like, baby, can you just help when you get home? You got to be nice. And she gets home and I promise you, not even 2 minutes goes by. And the thing is found. I don't know how. Don't know how it's a gift. And I asked her, I was like, baby, I looked. Like, and she's like, I don't think you looked. I don't think that you looked because you would have found it if you would have looked. And I was like, baby, I looked. I looked, it wasn't there. And she said, you look with your eyes. You look with your eyes. You don't know how to look. I'm going to teach you how to look. What does she do? She starts picking things up. She starts looking underneath. She starts lifting stuff up on the ground or and I'm like, oh my gosh, I did just look with my eyes. I didn't even really try. I didn't like take the time to like look underneath or to move things around to try to find something, but it was right there. I think our problem is we just look with our eyes when we're looking for God instead of searching him out. Instead of picking up the problems and looking it up and say, hey, yeah, I know this is in my face, but I'm going to look around it and see, oh, wow, God's actually kept me. He's actually been with me this whole time. I know a bad thing has happened to me in my life, but that has not neglected every good thing that he has done. And for some of you, like, that's a cop-out. And I'm going to tell you why it's not. I'm learning this now as a father too. Your kids do not appreciate you, ever. They just don't. They just don't. Sometimes, I mean, they appreciate my wife, but they don't appreciate me, okay? And what it is I'll do anything and everything, right? It's your birthday. Okay, you want rollerblades, roller skates? I got you, roller skates, baby blue. Just like you like pink, little, exactly with the ones you want. Here you go. Barely says thank you. She says thank you, but, it's like, it's real quick. It's like, oh, thanks, it's over. I'll make your lunch. I'll take you to get ice cream. I'll go play with you. I'll push you on the swing outside. I'll practice soccer with you. I'll do all this stuff. I'll make sure that you have a bed to sleep in, you got clothes to wear, that you got a roof over your head, that you're not hungry, that you got snacks, that you get to watch YouTube and you get to watch all the Disney. I got every freaking streaming channel that exists because this little girl wants to watch. Okay, you know what I'm saying? I'll do everything for you. But let one time happen when we go to the place with the claw machine and I don't have a quarter. The world is over. You don't love me. You haven't provided for me. You've never been there for me. You always do this. A quarter, bro. My whole paycheck went to you, little girl. I'm not about to give you another quarter. Hello? Isn't that just like us with God? God will literally carry you through your life, meeting every need that you have, and one thing goes wrong, and he's out the picture. Not only do we not know how to look, we don't recognize how good he's been. And we get overwhelmed by the moments of despair. And not to say that they shouldn't be heavy and hard, but that should not be the first move for us to question if God even exists, or if he cares, or if he's even involved. That's silly. But we do it because we feel it and we're not thinking. We look, we don't lift. We don't do the hard work of looking the right way. And so he doubts. He lets that doubt move him to a place where he gets into this conversation with Jesus and he tells him how it's all happened. It's been since his childhood. It always throws him down. And he ends it with, if there's anything that you can do, if you can do anything. He doesn't even have the faith to ask him, hey, can you heal my son? Hey, can you do this for us? He goes, if you can do anything. He's completely given up on healing. He just wants a little bit of help. And Jesus, in the most loving response he can give, he says, if I can. As if Jesus was saying, do you not know my resume? Do you not know that I calm storms by doing this? That I set people free, that I've fixed broken legs, that blind eyes now see and deaf ears now hear. It's all on my resume. That the dead get raised to life. That's on my resume. Walking on water is on my resume. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but God breaking chains in your life is on his resume. Him being present in the hardest moment of your life, on his resume. Him opening up a sea, a Red Sea, when there's no way forward, he makes a way. That's on his resume. Defeating giants, on his resume. Healing broken hearts, on his resume. Bringing life when it feels like there's no hope left, is on his resume. If you can, I think one of the biggest problems that we have with this whole deal of doubt is that we believe too little. And we ask for too little. And God is offended by our little ask. I wish you would believe me for more. All things, not anything, all things can be done to one who believes. All things. There is nothing off the table for God. Nothing. I dare you to believe him enough to stick in there and have faith. To ask for what you need. It's on his resume. I think a lot of us, we think that God is somehow intimidated by our lack of faith. That if we have just a little bit of doubt, he's not going to move. You didn't believe. You weren't full of faith. The thing I love the most about this story is that this man has one yes and a heart full of no's. He's got one lifeboat of belief in a sea of doubt, and Jesus still moves. God is big enough for your questions. He's big enough for your doubt. He's big enough for your hurt feelings. He's big enough for your questions about why were you not there for me when I needed you. He's big enough for it, and he welcomes it. I think our problem is we stop talking with him when he doesn't meet the thing that we're asking him to meet. That your doubt that you're carrying in your life is not a thing that turns God away. It's actually something that he wants to meet with you on. It's a place that he wants to intersect. And what's so funny is he just needed a little bit, not a lot. It doesn't matter how much faith you have. It's about where it's put. It doesn't matter if you've got a ton of faith. What's it say? Faith is big as a mustard seed. A little bit of faith, but in the right place can do a lot. God will take your little and do a lot. God will move on a maybe for you if you'll meet him there. Let me say that again. He'll move on a maybe for you if you'll just meet him there. God, I believe you, but I got this little bit of doubt that I'm still carrying. I don't want to have it, but I got it because I've lived enough life to know that it's hard to really believe and trust you. And God says, I'll take that. I'll move on that. I'll be faithful to you in that. You got these other texts that people are completely doubting. If you have a heart full of doubt with not even an ounce of belief, that's different than a little bit of belief. Even hope. Well, I kind of hope that you would. I don't know if you will or not, but I have a little bit of hope. God will still move. Because he loves to show himself faithful. He loves to show himself faithful. You know what the funniest thing about this whole idea of doubt, I know a lot of us, when we experience these problems, this difficulty, duration, and disappointment, we ask this question: how can God exist with all this bad and evil in the world? How can a good God that is actually able to do anything exist when bad stuff happens? It's a logical conclusion, because if God is good, that means everything that he does should be good, right? We're pretty much in agreement that a good God does good things, yes? Okay, and if he's able, if he can do anything, like literally anything, but he doesn't do it, then is he not able or is he not good? Well, if he's able and he's good, but he doesn't do it, does he care? Right? That's what we're really asking. Does God care? And let me tell you, friends, you don't need to look any further than the cross to know that God cares. You don't need to look any further than Jesus to know that God cares for you. But that's the question, right? I think that question is actually lacking one thing. It's lacking all the characters to the story. In this story I love so much because it has every character present. It's got Jesus. It's got the disciples. It's got this crowd that's hurting, this father that's hurting. It's got the scribes and this religious that don't really believe. They don't have really any authority. They're kind of the rule followers that aren't really following the rules. They're following their own thing. And then it's got this unclean spirit. It's got the enemy. Don't forget there's a bad guy in the story. Please don't forget that it's just that he's here and that we're in it because of him, in our own decision. Yeah? God didn't do all the messed up stuff. We're hurt. Man, my friend died. Yes, it's horrible, but that's not God's weapon. Death is not God's weapon. Jesus died to defeat death. That's why he came, to fix it. It's missing characters in the story, and specifically the characters that is missing the most and the ones that we often overlook are those who believe, the disciples. The reason this man even is disappointed is because the disciples were unable. Did you notice Jesus' response when he tells him that your disciples weren't able? He has the most ridiculous response. It's not like, of course, they're the disciples. I'm Jesus. That's not his response. He's not like, oh yeah, you took it to the amateurs? You need to come to the professional. I got you. I'm Jesus, No. He's like, oh, faithless generation, how long am I to bear with you? How long am I going to have to be here with you? What's he saying? Hello? I'm expecting you to fix it. You didn't think about that one, did you? The Father even expects the disciples to fix it. I brought my son to you. No, you didn't. You brought it to the disciples. Guess what the Father says? He sees the disciples on the exact same level that he sees Jesus. And that's exactly the point. Why do you think Jesus took 12 men and he discipled them for 3 years and then died and rose? You think Jesus chose that? If Jesus was just going to die on the cross, he could have done it by himself. He chose those men. Why? To carry his spirit and start the church. Oh, let me tell you, it's always been the plan of God to use the people of God to fulfill the purposes of God. Oh, let me say it again. It has always been God's plan to use people who believe in him to do the things that he made humans to do. He made Adam and Eve to rule over the created order in his image. Do you know what that means? I made you like me. Now go do what I do on the thing I made. And I'm going to be in relationship with you while you do it. We have taken ourselves out of the picture and looking up at heaven like, God, why are you not doing anything? And Jesus in the story is looking at the disciples like, I sent you. I gave you authority to cast out demons. I gave you authority to go heal. I gave you the authority to go preach the gospel. And the disciples are doing what? Instead of walking in authority, they're arguing. Isn't that so funny that that's exactly what the church does? That God has given the church to walk in authority and power and set people free and heal people that are broken. And what are we doing? We're arguing over our politics. We're arguing over our right theology. We're arguing over the color of the carpet. Come on. What are we doing? It's on us. It's on us. The people of God, believing God, walking in relationship with God, doing the things that he made us to do. That's the point. And we've missed it. And the doubt of the disciples in themselves to walk in the authority that Jesus gave is the very reason why this man doubts. Some of you have been so hurt by church because instead of them walking in the authority and power of Jesus, they did the other thing and they hurt you. And now you doubted God. You believed in people instead of believing in Jesus, who is equipping and empowering those people to do something in the earth. And you've been like, I'm out on God because I've been hurt by his people. You know how smart that is? I've been food poisoned before. I'm never eating again. That's exactly the decision you made. You know that, right? You know, I love Tex-Mex, but that one place, I'm done with Tex-Mex. I'm never eating queso again. Well, maybe you shouldn't eat at that place anymore. Yeah? We make these big generalizing things, and the reality is we're trying to look for an out because we have doubt. Jesus, he has moved and he has put his authority on these disciples to handle this. And that's not just good preaching or the text, man. That's right theology. Romans 8 is the very reason why bad things still exist in this earth. Did you know that? If you ever ask that question, look at Romans 8. You don't need to look any further. Let me read it to you. Romans 8, verse 18 says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." Here's the part. Creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation, the earth, the universe, everything about everything that you see, taste, touch, feel, everything was subjected to futility, brokenness. God let it exist the way it is. Why? Because him who subjected it in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. At the very beginning of this story, this big story, God made people, right? People doubted God, and they chose something that they never should have chose. And if they knew the outcome, they never would have chose it. And they gave the authority that God had given them to somebody else. I'm here to tell you the places that sin reigns in your life, the only reason it's there is because you've given authority to the enemy. That every struggle that you have the authority to take from Jesus and change it. Why? Because all authority on heaven and on earth has been given to me, and I've given it to you, is what Jesus said. We walk around thinking we have no authority, and we've got it. And the reason we have it is because God wants to do something with it to heal the broken place that we live on. This is why we have it. That's why the Spirit of God lives in you, not just to get you to heaven. That's like one part of the story. if you believe and go to heaven, well, they just beam you up, Scotty, right when you're ready. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I believe, I'm ready. Gone. You know, like, no. There's something for you to do here. But it takes belief in yourself also. That God has given it to me. Why me? Because there's something in you that has to come out. There's something in you that the world needs. There's something in you that God has given you authority over, and if you don't walk in it, people are going to doubt God. Why? Because they're looking at you. They're looking at you. No, I love Jesus' answer to the disciples when they ask him, why could we not cast it out? And you think, at first it's like, oh, well, you know what? You're up against a really big demon here, okay? It's a level 5 demon, and you got to pray up, brother. But you know what's so funny about this whole story? Jesus never prays to cast this thing out. You ever think about that? Have you ever read in this book that Jesus, when faced with the sickness, with faced with a demon, with faced with anything like that, he has to pray? Not one time. He commands it to come out. Why? Because he lives a lifestyle of prayer. He goes to a desolate place early in the morning when no one is up, and he prays. That he has a lifestyle of prayer. This isn't just some moment, oh, hey, you know what? Let me pray for you, brother. Let me pray for healing. Yes, do that, please. But the reality is, if you're not tapping into the source, that's like studying for a test 2 minutes before the test thinking you're going to get an A. It's dumb. It's not how it works. So it makes me ask the question, what's prayer for? It's for connection. It's connection to the authority, right? You know, I've got this old truck, and she's ugly, okay? She's real ugly. She's a 96 Ford F-350, and I cannot afford the gas, okay? Can't do it. Diesel's expensive. And currently she sits dead in my driveway, to my shame. And the other day I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something about this. I paid money for this truck. I need it to move things. Let's do this. And so, like any able-bodied man, I go to AutoZone. And I take the battery with me, and I'm like, hey, man, I think something's wrong with my battery. I had to, act all like, I think, yeah, there's something wrong with that battery, brother. And the guy runs the test. He comes back to me and goes, hey, there's nothing wrong with the battery. You probably bought it a couple years ago. Still good. And I was like, really? The battery's good? So you mean to tell me my truck won't turn on and my battery's good? Makes sense of that to me, AutoZone brother. He told me, he said, hey, have you checked the wires connected to the battery? And I was like, I didn't even think about doing that. And what I found was there's short in the wire to the battery. Oh, nothing wrong with the power source. Nothing wrong with the battery. Everything wrong with the connection. Boy, if that don't preach. There is nothing wrong with the power source. There is nothing wrong with God. God still does miracles. He still speaks. He's still active in the world. The problem is we've lost our connection. That prayer is the point of connection. And a lot of us know what we've done because we've experienced doubt, things that lead us to doubt. We've stopped the conversation. We've just ended it. I don't really believe anymore. And we say, like, I go to church. Yeah, I believe in God, and I'll pray. I'll do my Santa's wish list to God. Sit on Santa's lap and tell him everything you want for Christmas. Like, God, I need this, I need this, I need this. And God's like, man, it'd be nice if you just wanted to connect with me, though. As a dad, when my kid just wants to tell me everything that she wants, it does not make me want to hang out with her. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I'm a bad dad. But do you know what it does? When she shows me her drawings, when she shows me the things that she makes, when she tells me about her day at school, when she talks to me about her friends, when she talks to me about this silly book called Warriors that's about cats, and I hate cats. It makes my heart come alive because my little girl is telling me about her world. And I get to connect with her. And I get to tell her that she's beautiful and that she's creative and that she's special and that she means something. And sometimes she wants to trade that for just I would really like ice cream right now. And I'm like, you really don't need ice cream because you just had pie, bro. You do not need any more. As the band's coming back up, I want to address this reality. I think a lot of us, we've experienced difficulty in life that shook the foundation and core of who we are. And we want to believe in Jesus. We want to believe that God's active and moving in his hands on your life and that good things are going to happen, that the best days are yet to come. Yeah, the future's bright, all these things. We want to believe that. But there's these things that just happen in our life that makes us wonder if that's even true. And instead of outwardly saying, I don't really know if I believe that anymore, we change our theology for it to fit. Yeah, God doesn't do miracles anymore. That's why I don't see anything miraculous in my life. And God has no real power to affect and change anything in my world, so I shouldn't expect him to. He's busy. I shouldn't bother him with my needs. And we quietly quit and we live a life of faith that's just really full of doubt. I know for me, recently I've just been in a weird space as a pastor, as a husband, as a father, and when you're a dad, you get to relive your life over. I don't know if you know that or not. But you look at your kid and you're like, man, I remember when I was 10. I remember when I was full of hope and the world was bright. And then I remember when I was 12 years old, my best friend got into an accident. And I wondered how a good God could exist in the world who would let something like that happen. And if he loved him or if he loved me or if he cared at all. I made a theology around it. I was like, you know what? No, God's good, and you don't question God, and he can't do everything because it's slippery, so he can't fix it. I go through all the theological boxes, and I make it as if my feelings don't matter, though. That it didn't hurt my feelings that those nights that I prayed that my friend would be healed, night after night after night, tears running out of my eyes until I didn't have any tears left. God, please do something. Please help. And all I hear from heaven is silence. I think something in me broke at 12 years old, believing I did believe you, God, and you let me down. You let me down. And when I was 13 and 3 other friends passed away, I was like, God, I'm trying to put you in the box that I make because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. Then you date some people and your heart breaks a little bit and you get jaded by the world and you start believing that everybody's really out to get you and no one's really going to love you for what you are. And you start to kind of just live a life that you just kind of settle for. And I meeting with this guy and he was telling me, he says, Blake, that's a lot for a 12-year-old. And I was like, I'm a real smart 12-year-old. I got to be able to put all those things in their right boxes. It was all where it needed to be. I'm good now. He said, Blake, this sounds like a really crazy idea, but maybe you need to forgive God. Not that God owes you an apology, not that he's wrong, but just like in any relationship, if the person that you love doesn't do anything wrong, but your feelings get hurt, for you to reestablish that relationship, you have to forgive. And I went through this journey of walking through these moments where I was like, God, it really hurt me that you let that happen that way. It really hurt me that you didn't show up when I needed you to show up. It really hurt me that I believed and you weren't there. It really hurt, God. But God, I forgive you. Oh, and God met me there. I don't know if you know this or not. The same thing with doubt is the same thing with hurt. God often doesn't give answers for the brokenness of the world. There's no answer I'm going to give you that's going to make it feel better. It's not. I'm not blind to know that a lot of you this week been confronted with 2 untimely deaths. It is painful to believe that God was there and present when bad stuff happens. It is so hard to believe, and you're trying to grasp and believe it. And you have no answer. 31 years of life has told me and taught me this. Sometimes an answer isn't good enough. Sometimes you just need the presence and power of God back in your heart. And the only way you get it is by restarting that conversation with Him. God, I'm hurt. I want to believe. Help my unbelief. God, I want to walk forward in faith, but I've got this thing in me that I can't let go of. Will you meet me there? And I promise you that He will. I want you, in this moment as we stand back up and as we go back into a time of worship, I want you to really just sit and think. Have I really stopped believing because I've been let down? Or I've been through some hard things and it's shifted the way I believe that God wants to move in my life. And in this moment, I want you to lay those things down at His feet and say, God, I don't have an answer for this, but I want to restart the conversation with you. I want to restart the